They never clapped for the work, only for the show. When the lights were bright and you were smiling through cracked teeth, they called you strong. When you bled in colors they could turn into stories, they called you real. But when you gave them the ordinary miracles, the rides in the rain, the late-night check-ins, the patience that cost sleep and pride, there was no audience for that. Real effort is invisible until it leaves. Then suddenly everyone sees the outline of what used to hold them up. You were the loyal one. You gave time, attention, the small kindness that keeps a person from breaking on a Tuesday afternoon. You spoke the heavy truth, the kind that saves futures but ruins evenings. They said they wanted honesty, but what they meant was flattery with a halo on it. Your honesty made them uncomfortable, because mirrors don't let anyone keep their favorite lies. So they made you an option. They rationed the bare minimum like it was a luxury you should thank them for. They trained you to beg for basics, effort, honesty, consistency, as if asking to be treated like a person was some wild dream. And still you kept building dreams around them, kept swallowing pain so they wouldn't choke on their guilt. You called it love. It was weatherproofing for a house that didn't belong to you. They misread your quiet. The times you chose restraint over eruption, they called it weakness. They felt strong when you explained yourself, powerful when you reacted. They were addicted to the control your heart gave them, the rush of mattering every time you came back apologizing for bleeding on their shoes after they cut you. You were their mirror and their punching bag in one, a way to avoid themselves by injuring you. Here's the part they'll never admit. It was never that you weren't enough. It was that they weren't ready for someone real. Real demands reflection, not performance. Real asks for growth, not applause. And growth is expensive. Most people can't afford it because it costs the story they tell about themselves. You warned them, not with speeches. Your actions said everything. You forgave more than was wise. You showed up when it was inconvenient. You held the line even when your hands were shaking. But warnings mean nothing to ears that only hear what feeds them. The disrespect didn't start loud. It started small. Late replies blooming into silence. Forgot turning into habit. Jokes with sharp edges that drew blood and drew laughter at the same time. You told yourself it was nothing. 1,000 nothings became a wall. One night, the math changed. You looked at your phone and saw a history of you writing essays to a person who answered in headlines. You heard your voice and realized it had been trained to soften the truth so they could avoid it. That's when the air got clear. That's when the quiet you feared became the only language that made sense. So you walked away without a sound, not out of spite, out of self-defense. No grand finale, no speech, just absence. It wasn't the kind of silence that asked to be noticed. It was the kind that says, "We're done negotiating my worth." You didn't block. You didn't curse. You didn't even look back. You simply removed your heart from a place that kept spending it like counterfeit. At first, the body begged for the old ache. Addiction looks like love when you're used to starving. You missed the version of them you wrote in your head, the potential, the promise, the almost of it all. But potential is a thief when it keeps you paying for what never ships. You learn to sit with the withdrawals, the reflex to explain, the gravity of old habits, the phantom buzz of a notification that never comes. You watched the waves pass without drowning in them. Each one left behind a little more shoreline. Then the silence started doing what words could not. It crept into their evenings, into the pauses between their jokes, into the gaps where your name used to live. They looked for the theater, no stage. They looked for the audience, empty seats. They looked for the prop they called your forgiveness, gone. Panic wears a lot of costumes. Just checking in, hope you're okay, been thinking about you. None of them fit anymore. They said you were petty. They said you changed. They said this was pride. Let them. People who were fed by your pain will always call your healing egotistical. They're not upset you left. They're upset the power left with you. Their control needed your reaction like a flame needs oxygen. You closed the door. The fire suffocated in its own smoke. Meanwhile, you did something simple, radical, and unphotogenic. You rebuilt. You turned betrayal into blueprints and neglect into discipline. You stopped reacting and started recording. Hours slept, miles moved, pages written, prayers whispered, breaths counted. You traded the circus for a workshop and found out peace doesn't buzz. It hums. It hums when the phone stays dark and you don't reach. It hums when the morning belongs to your legs, your lungs, your lists, not their unpredictability. It hums in the space where your worth used to be debated and now stands as policy, non-negotiable. And still the world kept spinning its little rumors. They needed a villain to survive the truth. Fine. You let the story travel without you. Lies sprint. Truth endures. Time is not on the side of people who squander the real. Time is a mirror, and mirrors keep receipts. They'll learn, not fast, not gracefully, not with flowers and full sentences. They'll learn the way cowards always do, late, alone, and too quietly to post. One night, after the distraction runs out and the applause fades, they'll feel the room tilt. They'll reach for the old anchor and find open water. They'll remember the weight of your steadiness, the way your care made their smallness feel safe, the way your effort hid the leaks in their life. And they'll know what they lost wasn't convenient, it was irreplaceable. They'll try the door. They'll find it doesn't exist anymore. And that's when the lesson finally begins.
They'll start to circle your name again, but not because of affection, because of absence. Absence has gravity. It bends their orbit. They'll talk about you in half sentences, trying to guess what you're doing, where you went, whether the silence means peace or punishment. They'll scroll your traces and realize there aren't any. That's when it hits them. You didn't vanish. You evolved out of reach. You don't post proof. You don't explain. You build. You wake early, move quietly, live privately. Your world has shrunk to what fits inside discipline. There's no audience there, only the hum of effort. And it's enough. The same traits they mocked, your consistency, your honesty, your stubborn care, have turned into the foundation they now wish they had. Meanwhile, their noise keeps echoing back on itself. The stories they told to survive the guilt start cracking. The mutual friends stop nodding. The air shifts. People can smell regret. It's metallic, sour, obvious. They begin to realize what they lost wasn't comfort. It was calibration. You were the steady metronome keeping chaos in time. Now the rhythm is gone, and every beat feels wrong. You sense it from a distance, not satisfaction, confirmation. The universe balancing its books. The same silence they misread as weakness has become verdict. They taught you what you needed to know, how to stop trying to prove your worth to people who profit from your doubt. So you invest everything back into yourself. The workouts get longer, the pages thicker, the sleep cleaner. You learn new trades, fix old wounds, pay old debts. No one sees it, and that's the point. Growth done in private is harder to sabotage. You start to look different, calmer, sharper. The eyes that once begged now measure. The heart that once chased now chooses. Some nights, memories knock. You let them sit in the hallway. You don't invite them in. You've made peace with the past the way a soldier makes peace with battle, by accepting that it happened and walking forward anyway. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's refusing to carry the weapon any longer. They'll call your peace arrogance because peace threatens chaos. They'll say you're distant because they can't reach where you are. But distance isn't punishment, it's protection. You protect what you've built, and what you've built is sacred. Self-respect with walls of silence and windows of purpose. There's beauty in what you've become. You're not bitter, you're better. The difference is subtle but enormous. Bitterness still watches the door. Better burns the blueprint and builds somewhere else. Every time they cross your mind, it's not pain anymore, it's perspective. They were a lesson disguised as love, a teacher disguised as betrayal. You paid tuition in heartbreak and graduated fluent in boundaries. Now you walk differently, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. You don't need to announce that you've healed. Peace has a posture. When people meet you now, they feel it before you speak. The quiet authority of someone who survived his own naivety. They might call it cold, but it's simply temperature returning to normal after years of fever. One day, one of them will find your number again. They'll hover over the screen, type something vague, delete it, type again. Maybe they'll send it. Hey, been a long time. You'll read it once and feel nothing break, nothing burn. That's how you'll know you're free. The same words that once unraveled you now mean nothing, because they come from someone who taught you everything you needed to unlearn. By then, your life will be unrecognizable. The quiet projects you started in pain will have grown into structure, career, craft, health, and peace. You'll have people around you who speak the same language of effort, not replacements, just resonance. You won't tell them your old story often. It doesn't define you anymore. It's just one chapter in a book that kept going. And those who failed you, they'll keep turning back to the empty page where you used to be, searching for a response that will never come. That's the cruelest truth about taking someone for granted. You never realize the price until they stop giving credit. You won't celebrate their regret. You'll just let it exist. Because maturity isn't revenge, it's release. The silence that once suffocated you has become oxygen. You breathe it like truth. When they remember you, it will be sudden. A scent, a song, a sentence. It will hit like weather they can't predict. And in that moment, they'll understand. All you ever asked for was effort, honesty, consistency. 3 small things they couldn't give because they thought you'd always be there. Regret doesn't shout, it drips. It shows up at midnight when the lights are off and the replacements are asleep. It crawls into their chest and whispers the line they can't unhear. You lost the only real one you had. You won't hear that whisper. You'll be too far gone, already living the life they could have had the honor to witness if they'd only valued it. Your peace will be the loudest sound in their memory, the final punctuation at the end of a story they thought would never end.
By the time the noise dies, you've already built a different life. There's less light in it, maybe, but it's clean. You measure your days in progress instead of apology. You eat alone, train alone, think alone, and none of it feels like punishment anymore. Solitude has become a ritual. It polishes you. Every repetition files off another jagged edge left by disappointment. The silence that once roared in your ears has turned into music, a low, steady rhythm that keeps time with your breath. You've learned that quiet isn't the absence of sound, it's the absence of distraction. When the mind stops fighting for validation, it finally starts listening to its own pulse. That's where the real voice hides. You start hearing it again, the one you drowned out for years while trying to please everyone else.
It doesn't flatter. It instructs. Keep going. Don't explain. Work. Rest. Simple commands that rebuild complex peace. Outside, life keeps moving. The same people who mistook your loyalty for convenience are now learning mathematics the hard way. Subtraction. Every day without you is a number they can't balance. They post captions about growth, about lessons, about peace, trying to convince the mirror they're fine. But mirrors don't lie. They see the hollowness behind the curated smiles. You were never replaced. You were removed. There's a difference. Regret is slow poison. It doesn't crash through doors. It drips through ceilings. It shows up when laughter fades and silence fills the room. It sits beside them, wearing your calm, asking questions they can't answer. Why did you treat the loyal one like they'd never leave? Why did you feed on someone who would have starved for you? There are no rehearsed replies for that. Meanwhile, you've stopped rehearsing anything. Authenticity no longer costs effort. It's just the default. You say less and mean more. You don't need to prove kindness. You live it quietly. You don't need to announce boundaries. People feel them when they touch the edges of your patience. You've become fluent in a language few understand, calm with consequences. You've learned that love without respect is noise, that friendship without reciprocity is charity, that attention without depth is a trap. You escaped it, not by running faster, but by standing still long enough for shallow water to drain away. The world will still test you. It always does. New faces, new promises, the same old pattern wrapped in fresh vocabulary. But you're different now. The radar in your chest picks up insincerity miles away. You don't flinch. You simply redirect. There's no anger left in you, only clarity. They might call it cynicism. It isn't. It's sight restored. Once you've seen the machinery behind fake affection, you can't unsee it. You start choosing peace over participation. You'd rather be misunderstood than misused. And the more you practice that, the lighter everything becomes. Some nights, you still catch the echo of your old self, the one who begged, who explained, who kept proving. You nod to them, thank them for surviving long enough to hand you the lesson, and send them back into memory. You don't hate that version. You honor it. Without them, you'd never have built this spine of silence. The irony is simple. They thought breaking you would end you, but it built you. The same cracks they left are now seams of strength. You hold yourself together not by force, but by choice. Peace isn't armor anymore. It's skin. And when word finally reaches you that they asked about you, that they miss you, that they didn't mean it, you just breathe. Not because it hurts, but because it doesn't. Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without reopening. You hope they grow. You don't wish them pain. You wish them awareness. The only revenge worth having is living a life that doesn't require any. So you keep walking. The road hums under your feet. New people appear, not replacements, but reflections. Those who speak with actions instead of apologies. They match your frequency because you stopped lowering it for those who couldn't hear truth. That's how alignment works. Silence clears the static, so the right signals can find you. There will always be someone who wonders how you do it, how you stay calm while everything around you screams. You won't explain that calm isn't natural. It's trained. That silence wasn't gifted. It was earned, hour by hour, heartbreak by heartbreak. You just smile and keep moving. Because the secret is this: you never stopped caring. You just stopped wasting care where it starved. That's what they'll never understand. Caring wasn't your weakness. It was your craft. You simply learned better materials, discipline instead of desperation, purpose instead of people. And that's the final lesson silence teaches. Not how to stop feeling, but how to feel without falling apart. To love deeply without losing yourself. To give without expectation, and walk away without explanation. The hum fades to a single heartbeat. They'll learn too late what you were worth, but you'll already be somewhere quiet, somewhere earned, a place built from all the noise you outlive.